Today, wherever you are standing, let this message begin with you. Maybe you look completely fine on the outside. You are talking to people. You are doing your work. You are going through your daily routine. You may even be smiling. But what is happening inside you? Perhaps nobody knows. There are questions you have never told anyone about. There are tears you have wiped away when nobody was watching. There have been nights when your eyes were closed, but your mind refused to rest. And perhaps you have asked yourself, why is this happening to me? I have tried so hard. So why is nothing changing? I have prayed. So why haven't I received an answer? Is my prayer even being heard? Today, don't listen to this message in a hurry. Take a moment for yourself. Quiet your mind. And hold on to that little piece of hope you almost decided to let go of, because sometimes your story does not end where you think everything has ended. Sometimes that very place becomes the beginning of a new chapter. You cannot see the whole picture yet, and perhaps that is what troubles you the most. You want to know what is going to happen next. You want an answer today. You want the door standing in front of you to open immediately. But not everything opens immediately. Some doors require patience, some paths require waiting, and some answers only become clear with time. So if today you feel like nothing is moving forward, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and tell yourself, my story is not over yet. Your current situation is not your entire identity. Your problem is not your future. Your failure is not your final result. And your today does not determine your entire tomorrow. Maybe you have started many times. Then something happened. You fell. You became disappointed. You tried again. Then another disappointment came. And slowly, a voice began to grow inside you. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe nothing good is meant for me. Maybe my prayers have no answer. But listen carefully. Being tired and giving up are not the same thing. You may be tired. You may cry. You may need to stop for a while. But that does not mean you have to abandon your faith. Sometimes you don't need to run. You simply need to stand. Sometimes you only need to survive one more day. Just get through today. And then tomorrow comes. And with tomorrow comes another opportunity. The thing you have been praying for may not be visible to you yet. But that does not mean you should abandon hope. Sometimes the answer does not come immediately. Sometimes the path opens slowly. Sometimes you see one door closed because you are staring only at that one door. But one closed door does not mean the whole world has closed around you. There may still be other paths, other opportunities, other people, another beginning. So don't spend your entire life holding on to something that has already slipped from your hands. Some things leave your life because their season has ended, and accepting that is not easy. You think, I wish that person would come back. I wish that relationship could be repaired. I wish I had received that opportunity. I wish I had made a different decision. But repeatedly looking at your past cannot change your future. Turn what happened into a lesson. Recognize the pain. Learn from the mistake. But don't build your home there. You have to move forward. Maybe today you have very little. But don't underestimate what you have. A small amount of hope is still hope. A small prayer is still a prayer. A small step is still movement. You don't need to see the entire staircase. Sometimes seeing only the next step is enough. Take the next step today. Tomorrow's path will reveal itself tomorrow. You don't need an answer to every question today. You don't need to solve every problem today. You don't need to know everything about your future. For today, simply remember this. You must not give up. If you are exhausted, rest for a while. But don't abandon your hope. If you need to cry, cry. But don't allow your tears to become your entire story. If you are afraid, admit that you are afraid. But don't allow fear to make every decision for you. Fear often shows you everything that could go wrong. Faith reminds you that something good may still be possible. The problem in front of you may be big, but sometimes your mind makes it even bigger. So every morning, don't look at your problem first. Look at your hope first. Remember your purpose. Ask yourself, what small, good step can I take today? Maybe you need to forgive someone. Maybe you need to have a conversation. Maybe you need to face an old fear. Maybe you need to return your attention to your work. Maybe you need to begin, and perhaps you thought that once you decided not to give up, everything would suddenly become easier. But that is not always how the journey works. Sometimes, after you make the decision to keep going, the road becomes even more challenging. You pray. You wait. You hope. And still, nothing seems to change. That is when doubt begins to speak again. It whispers, maybe you were wrong to hope. Maybe nothing is going to change. Maybe you should stop trying. But remember what you told yourself before. My story is not over yet. Don't forget those words just because the next chapter is difficult. You are in the middle of the story now, and the middle is often the hardest part. The beginning gave you hope. The ending will give you understanding. But the middle asks you to keep walking without knowing exactly where the road will lead. That is where patience is built. That is where character is built. That is where faith becomes more than words. Anyone can believe when everything is going well. But what happens when you pray and still have to wait? What happens when you do the right thing and still face disappointment? What happens when you are trying your best and nobody seems to notice? That is when your heart is being tested. Not because you are being abandoned, but because you are learning how to continue even when you cannot see the whole path. Think about how often you have wanted an immediate answer. You wanted to know, will this relationship work? Will I ever become successful? Will my financial situation improve? Will my family be okay? Will my dream ever happen? You wanted certainty, but sometimes life doesn't give you certainty. It gives you a choice to keep walking, a choice to keep believing, a choice to keep becoming the person you were meant to become. And perhaps right now, you are standing in front of a decision. Maybe you have been holding on to something that you know you need to release. Maybe you are afraid to leave because you don't know what will come next. You keep asking, what if I let go? And nothing better comes. But ask yourself another question. What if holding on is preventing me from moving forward? Sometimes you cannot receive something new because your hands are still holding yesterday. You are holding the old disappointment, the old relationship, the old mistake, the old version of yourself. You keep replaying the same memories. You keep asking what you should have done differently. But there comes a moment when you have to say, it happened. I learned from it. And now I am moving forward. Forgiveness is part of moving forward, and sometimes the person that you need to forgive is not someone else. Sometimes you need to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now. Forgive yourself for trusting the wrong person. Forgive yourself for making a decision when you were afraid. Forgive yourself for the years you believe you wasted. You were learning. You were growing. You were becoming. You cannot go back and change yesterday. But you can decide what yesterday will mean for tomorrow. Your past can become a prison, or it can become a classroom. The choice begins when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin asking, what can I learn from this? That question changes everything. Because pain without reflection can make you bitter, but pain with wisdom can make you stronger. Maybe that's why you have survived things you never thought you could survive. Think about it. There were moments when you were certain you wouldn't make it through. But you did. There were nights when you thought you couldn't take another day. But you woke up. There were situations that broke your heart. But somehow you continued. Look at yourself now. You are still here. That matters. You may not be where you want to be, but you are not where you used to be either. Don't ignore your progress simply because you haven't reached your destination. Sometimes you are so focused on the mountain ahead that you forget to look back at the valley you already crossed. You have survived, you have learned, you have changed, and you are still becoming stronger. So don't compare your journey with someone else's. Their chapter is not your chapter. Their timing is not your timing. Their opportunities are not your opportunities. You see their success, but you don't see everything they had to survive before you notice them. You see the result, but not the years of preparation. You see the smile, but not every tear behind it. So stop measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. Your journey has its own timing. And waiting does not always me.
There comes a moment in every journey when you have to stop standing at the edge and finally take the step. You have waited, you have questioned, you have cried, you have prayed, you have wondered why the road had to be so difficult, and now you are standing at a place where you cannot keep living in the same way. Something has to change. Maybe the change begins with a decision. Maybe it begins with forgiveness. Maybe it begins with letting go. Maybe it begins with believing again. But whatever it is, you know that you cannot remain where you are forever. You have spent enough time looking behind you. Now it is time to look forward. Remember the words from the beginning. My story is not over yet. You said those words when you were hurting. You said them when you were uncertain. You said them when you could not see what was coming next. And now you are beginning to understand why those words mattered. Because the difficult season was not the final chapter. It was part of the journey. The waiting was not the end. The disappointment was not the end. The rejection was not the end. The closed door was not the end. The tears were not the end. You were simply standing in the middle of a story that had not finished being written. And now, you have reached the moment when you must choose what happens next. You cannot change everything that happened to you, but you can choose what you do with it. You can carry the pain forever, or you can turn it into wisdom. You can carry anger, or you can choose peace. You can continue blaming yourself, or you can choose forgiveness. You can keep waiting for someone else's approval, or you can finally understand your own worth. You can keep living in yesterday, or you can step into tomorrow. And perhaps that is the real door you have been waiting for, not a physical door, not a perfect opportunity, but the door inside your own heart. The moment when you finally say, I am ready to move forward. Maybe moving forward means leaving something behind, and yes, that can hurt. Sometimes you have to release people you once believed would stay forever. Sometimes you have to release plans you once believed were guaranteed. Sometimes you have to release an old version of yourself. And letting go does not mean that you never cared. It means you have accepted that some chapters are complete. You can appreciate what they taught you without asking them to return. You can remember someone without needing them back. You can love what once existed without living there forever. That is growth. And perhaps you have been waiting for an apology. Maybe you believe you cannot heal until someone admits what they did. But listen carefully. Don't give another person control over your healing. They may never apologize. They may never understand. They may never admit that they hurt you. And if your healing depends on their words, you may remain trapped for years. Sometimes you have to release the need for an apology, not because what happened was acceptable, but because your future is more important than their inability to take responsibility. Forgive when you are ready. Heal at your own pace, but keep moving. Your heart deserves peace. Your mind deserves rest. Your future deserves a chance. And now think about the person you used to be, the person who was afraid, the person who questioned everything, the person who thought one failure meant the end. Look at how much you have learned. You are not the same person anymore. The pain changed you. The waiting changed you. The disappointment changed you. But you get to decide what those experiences create. They can make you bitter, or they can make you wiser. They can make you afraid, or they can teach you courage. They can make you close your heart, or they can teach you how to love with wisdom. Choose carefully. Because what happened to you is part of your story, but it does not have to become your identity. You are not your worst day. You are not your biggest mistake. You are not the person who rejected you. You are not the opportunity you lost. You are not the money you don't have. You are not the failure that happened yesterday. You are still becoming. And there is something powerful about realizing that. Because once you understand that you are still becoming, you stop treating your current situation as permanent. Today can be difficult, and tomorrow can still be different. Today can be confusing, and tomorrow can still bring clarity. Today can be lonely, and tomorrow can bring new relationships. Today can feel empty, and tomorrow can bring purpose. You don't know what tomorrow contains, and that uncertainty can frighten you, but uncertainty can also contain possibility. You don't know what is coming,